Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I will be reviewing Koda Kumi's last album, Record. Before we get started, I want to remind you that this is simply my opinion on the album, and if you enjoy this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more. So last year, Koda Kumi released a new album back in November of 2019. And the reason why I didn't review it earlier is because until now I never had the time to properly listen to it. And even the songs released prior to the album, I didn't pay attention to them very much because I don't really like to listen to like half of the album before it's out. I'd rather discover the entire album on the release day. And now that I finally got the time to listen to this one, let's talk about it. So after And and DNA, I'm glad we're off the double albums format for a bit because it was getting a little bit too much for my taste. And I'm not gonna lie, when this new album was announced, I thought it was a little bit too early. And I was worried about how the album would shape itself to be, and unfortunately for me, Record is a total mess. What I noticed after a couple of listens is how this album feels like it's going everywhere and nowhere sound-wise and theme-wise. I mean, the previous albums at least had some concept to go with it, but Record just feels like lost at sea at times, and I'm not sure what exactly she was trying to convey with this one, but it didn't work with me at all. Even the lyrics are pretty shallow, the production on some songs doesn't even feel great, even with the best efforts, and it kind of feels cheap at times. And when I saw the title of the album, I thought maybe she would revisit old songs in a new light. And outside of Rich and Famous featuring Sean Paul, which samples Chin Sizzle from DNA, which by the way is also very solid featuring between her and Sean Paul. It's actually one of the few songs I really enjoyed. And it reminded me of how good Loaded from Bon Voyage was. But outside of that, I mean, there isn't really that much of a follow of this theme of recording. You know, there are nods, but it never goes full on like this one did. And it's a bit disappointing. And you know, I mean, the songs on the album aren't bad. Some can be pretty good, but it really is just this messy aspect in a track list and how every song kind of tries something new, and yet we've heard it before. And especially in her last few albums, this is nothing that we haven't heard with her. And you know, it's good to feel comfortable in the style, there's no shame in that. But it makes this album feel very uneven, which is a shame because for me, it doesn't feel like a 2019 album, but more like the decade before. And this album has a cover in Japanese and English of Living La Vida Loca from Ricky Martin, which is fine. I mean, the original is great, you know, it reminds me of my childhood. It was everywhere on the TV and radio. But this one doesn't really add much to it, and you know, it really is part of the second half of the album, which is the part where I'm just not there anymore because it loses me completely, because it's like the mess is so intense in the second part. If you ask me right now, and I listened to this album at least a dozen times, I don't remember any of the songs title, what they sound like. I remember a few. Like the first half of the album is the most solid one. Like I remember them, but the rest I blanked on it. So yeah, overall, I did not enjoy this album very much. It's very uneven in every aspect, and I just can't get into it. And I wonder if it's just me, because I feel like no one has really talked about this album like the previous one. And I wonder if you guys feel the same way, especially even if you're not a fan, just a casual listener to your music, or you're like, oh, this one I did not care at all, because it feels for me like I've cared about her music for a long time. And even the last few albums, even though I had issues with them, I still enjoyed them for what they were. But this one, it really went over my head. When it came out, I had no interest, you know. Not only was I really busy, but I just had no interest in listening to it. And I finally motivated myself, and I was like, okay, here we go. And every time I tried to listen to it and remember it, I just couldn't. And, you know, it's kind of disappointing, but at the same time, I'm not that surprised because this album really came out way too fast. Like, I don't know if it was a contract thing, like 2019, you have to release an album, whatever a label says, but I hope now that, you know, she's celebrating a 20th anniversary, we get something else, we get something, like, she can take a break, something that just doesn't feel like the same thing over and over. And like I said, you know, I don't mind the same music style as long as there's depth and substance to it, but when it's not the case, it makes everything very shallow and on the surface, and this album is exactly that, and that's why I give it 2 stars. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to tell me what you think of Record down below, and I'll see you next time.